I had a sister-in-law. I watched her 10 years before die of cancer. I watched her fight, and this is back in 2000. But she kind of dragged me into going to see Dr. Weil. And so we went to these conferences. They were more holistic, and she tried everything. They gave her 6 months. She had stage 4. It had already gone to her liver, and she lasted 8 more years for her children. She tried everything, and I watched her macrobiotic. She would do reflexology and juicing, and her doctor would say, you better not juice while you're doing chemo because you're feeding the cancer. I had watched her suffer with the chemo and the radiation, and yet trying all the other stuff at the same time is not easy. And she suffered a lot with neuropathy and treating all the side effects. She asked questions and changed oncologists. I tried working with her. She wasn't stupid. I watched her journey. I remember her watching 9/11. It was about a month before she died. And she saw it on the screen and she said, what's going on with the world? She went through a lot and she was brave. She definitely influenced me. When I went through it 10 years later, still in my family, they're like, what do you mean you're not going to do chemo? What do you mean you're going to do hormone? You're going to die, Mom. They were all hounding me, the surgeon, just do it, just do it. And I remember I tried, Arimidex and all that crazy stuff for about 2 months. And I started getting aches. I read about the side effects and I'm not doing this. And they were like, well, just change. There's a bunch of kinds. You could do tamoxifen. You could do this. I'm like, I don't want to do any of them. I'm going to get rid of the bad estrogen in my life. I'm going to start the plastic bottles. I haven't read enough. But they did not support me, the doctors. I was talking to the wall. I finally found an oncologist that would accept me not doing it. I just wanted him to monitor me. And I would go into his office and he had the radiation and the chemo people in the back. And they looked so sick. I was the healthiest one in the waiting room. And then they would do my blood work and the nurses would go, you have great blood work. Well, I was juicing and doing all this crazy stuff. And it just convinced me more going into his office every day or every week. And I was like, I want to go back there. I came from a big Italian family. No one had cancer. So I had a big sampling group, except my grandfather had died of lung cancer, but he smoked. My mother was an Italian immigrant. They ate a clean Mediterranean diet and cooked their own food, and everything was whole and fresh. I thought I was super mom and microwaving, and we got to get to our basketball game, and my kids were real busy. I was serving everyone but me. So later on, you go back and go, what caused this? I think years and years, a toxic world that I was in. I had a lot of cavities, so all of it together. And I think everyone brings a different aspect of why they get that cancer, but all of us are exposed to a lot of it. Maybe some more than others, maybe by what profession they're in. I talk to a lot of people and they too search for the answer of why. You could drive yourself crazy with the why. You just need to move ahead and just start cleaning up everything in your life. And it ends up getting better. Everything starts working better. You feel better. You have more energy. Your hair gets better. Your nails grow. The skin tags. Everything works better. It's not just for your cancer. It's for yourself, for your life, for your family. And everyone is as toxic. Even now I go low and slow. Some people need to start low and slow. I remember I used to go, take a probiotic. Well, some people get stuck on one probiotic. Or I remember giving to my husband, I was taking the chlorella tablets, and I could take 20, and I would give him 10, and he'd be thick, doubled over, like, well, like, whoa, what? Everybody's body's different. I learned that the hard way. And I always say start low and slow. A lot of people start detoxing and do have a reaction, and they are trying to get rid of it out of their bodies. I can tell when I do a green juice, I will have more BO. Well, I don't even wear deodorant anymore, so I'm like, okay, I gotta go take a shower. Just drinking a green juice, a strong or a green smoothie. Of course, I put everything in it. I have gone off in so many directions that I don't like people to do what I've done. My first book that I read was Chris Parr's book. A friend of mine gave it to me when I first got diagnosed, and she said, read this book. And it was her first book about crazy, sexy diet. And I thought, I'm gonna be like her. I'm gonna investigate all this stuff. And it was all over the world. Like, she went everywhere. I went all over, and I don't think people should do all the crazy stuff I did because there's so much better stuff out now. I went to a place in Atlanta here that was the All Living Institute, and it was raw food for a week. Coffee endives and raw food and wheatgrass. All these sick people were there with all kinds of stuff. And I watched people in a week get better, like their hair stopped falling out, or their migraines stopped, or their Lyme disease, they had energy. I realized how powerful food was there. But we also did the emotional part there. At first, no one wanted to hear it. They kept trying to introduce it. We were like, why does she have to keep talking about this? And by the end of the week, we realized how important the emotional part was. People don't want to hear it in the beginning because they just don't believe that is part of it. But it's what you eat, drink, think. It's all connected. It's in your soul. You start to put it all together. And I think that's what the groups are good for, because we try to do the whole picture. There's that book I always tell people about. Candace Park wrote Molecules of Emotions. People instinctively knew about it, like Dr. Bernie Siegel and the way he ran his practice. They knew the mental part and the emotional part and the spiritual part, but now they know it. They know it because they can study the molecules within seconds. You make somebody laugh, their molecules get healthier. So women and breast cancer is related to something emotional. Louise Hay used to say a lot of breast cancer patients were always the givers and didn't take care of themselves. And it's pretty typical personality trait with breast cancer. Not all the time, but it's typical. It's a journey. I mean, it's not overnight. It's baby steps. Or when you have stage 4, you get a little more serious. It used to make me annoyed when people call, I'd spend an hour or two on the phone, and then they wouldn't do anything. And then they call me back a year or two later and it's back. Now I encourage them, even if they want to start their chemo, if that's what they feel comfortable with, but try this too. And I just want them to get started because they will feel better even with the chemo. And so it's baby steps sometimes.